You'll just have to imagine the fire.
What's up, everybody? Southpaw Chris here. Thought I would do a video today on my fire kit. This is my primary method of making fire in the woodlands or camping or practicing bushcraft. This is my primary full kit, so to speak, of the different methods that I use to make fire. And I find each of these items pretty interesting, so I thought I would just share them with you guys, just to give you guys ideas as well, if you guys are interested in learning or trying different ways of making fire. I mean, there's a lot of good uses for that, whether it's survival or just, you know, showing off in front of your friends, I guess. But there is a true history involved with these methods of fire making as well. So I will dive briefly into some of that with you guys. So let's get started. Now, this is a nice fire steel that I actually made myself with the intention of selling it, but I ended up liking it, so I kept it. But it's made from a deer bone, actually part of the leg. This is the knee socket here. But I actually found this bone while on a day hike, so I just picked it up and brought it back and decided to make a fire steel out of it. Nice 1/2 inch diameter fire steel there. Now, if it looks like this hasn't been used, it's because it hasn't. I haven't used this yet, although I've had it for a while, because of the other methods of fire that I have. I just have been saving this one for dire emergencies or for special occasions. So yeah, that's a nice primary fire steel. This fire steel is pretty interesting because it has this nice chunk of magnesium here, which you can scrape off with the back of your knife or something with a 90-degree spine, you know, like so, creating magnesium dust. Now, once you create that magnesium dust, then you can flip it around to this part, which is the fire steel. And then from there, once again, with firm pressure and striking away on an angle, you're creating that spark that's going to jump onto the magnesium and ignite it. And once that happens, you're looking at about 5,000 degrees or higher of temperature to start your fire. So it usually doesn't last that long, depending on, you know, what tinder you may be using, if you're using it by itself or, you know, with something combustible. So strike like so, creates the match, or creates the spark, and you're off to the races. Now, this hunka chunka quartz here, this is actually used in making fire as well. You know, there can be fire in rock, so to speak. And what I mean by that, you know, say you take your trusty Opinel number 10 here, and you find a nice sharp corner of the quartz, which has a Rockwell hardness of about 7. Take that edge, you line a piece of char cloth here, and then you take the Opinel, because it is high carbon steel, take that, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it creates a spark. Yep, there's a piece of it. Here's another piece. Anyway, you get the idea. So basically, the quartz shaves off little pieces of metal of the carbon steel, which, due to friction, are superheated and molten, and that's what creates a spark, which then jumps onto the char cloth that you place onto the quartz. And then once that spark is caught, then from there you can move that char cloth into a piece of tinder and blow that into a flame. So quartz is very handy. Now around here, quartz is everywhere. Not necessarily like this. You have to really hunt for pieces like this. But quartz is everywhere around here, so depending on where you live, whether you use quartz or chert or, you know, flint, they all can work. And then here we have a piece of fat wood, and fat wood is just pine resin impregnated wood, which is highly volatile due to, you know, that resin that is pumped into the tree roots, you know, if it's damaged or cut down. So very useful to know when starting a fire if need be. And then from here you can take your knife and shave off little pieces of fat wood, you know, and then using your fire still you can strike that fat wood to start a fire. Very useful. This is a Zippo lighter. Don't really use this unless I really have to. It's more or less a redundancy, just in case it's, you know, really wet, you know, or say you drop your fire kit or lose that, say you still have your Zippo. And the only downside is that you have to keep fluid in here, which only lasts about 2 to 3 days in here, you know, with normal use. So something to think about. Now in this pouch, this is where I house my primitive fire kit. And what's in here is actually really exciting, at least to me anyway. And this is the Hudson Bay tobacco tin. Now the Hudson Bay company, back in the 1600s, 1700s, and probably 1800s, they were a trading company in the north, and they dealt with whalers and fishermen and you know, crab fishermen, and you know, they helped set up trade, you know, along the routes of their fishing routes. So Hudson Bay grew and grew and grew over the years, and one of the things they sold was this tobacco tin. Now this is a replica, but nonetheless it's all brass. It's pretty much true to detail. But what this does is that the men or the fishermen or whoever would keep their tobacco in here, you know, their pipe tobacco or cigarette tobacco or whatever, and you know, so basically you have your tobacco in here, and you can take this lid off, and then what this little protrusion is here is what's the cool part. So you take this little cap off, which is also brass, and there you have a magnifying glass. Now I believe this is a 5 or I can't remember if it's either a 5 or 10 times scope, or not scope, magnification, which is about what you need to, you know, draw in that sunbeam to start a flame. But anyway, they will hold this over the tobacco, and then the sun would come down and beam through and ignite the tobacco. And then from there, once it's done, you know, you can take the tobacco out, put it in your pipe, and put that back on, and it basically just seals it off and chokes out the flame. So pretty interesting. But what a lot of bushcrafters have done is that they've used this as their fire kit, as a way of making fire, by using that solar energy that comes through that magnifying glass and using it to ignite tinder. Now in here I have a bag of char cloth, which again, what I said about the quartz, you know, you can take a piece of this char cloth and put this on the quartz, and then take the Opinel and then strike, whoops, and then stripe, hopefully without dropping it, and then strike, and then catch that spark on through the char cloth. So in here I also have my Flinch Striker. Now this too is a replica, but pretty much the same way they would make it back in the day. This is made of carbon steel, and it is heat treated a certain way so that it will spark, generate a spark. This is actually a piece of flint, and then what you do here is it slides onto your knuckles. I like to keep it pretty much in the front of my fingers here, and you hold the flint in this hand. You take a piece of the char cloth, you know, hold that with your thumb, and then you take the striker, I don't know if you can see those sparks, but yeah, and again, you're off to the races as long as you know what to do. So that is the Hudson Bay tobacco tin. This is one of my favorite pieces of kit, I must say. I will leave links below in the description of where you guys can actually pick this up if you're interested. In here I just have some jute twine, which is great for making bird nests. You know, cut pieces of this off, undo the twines, you know, and then basically make a little nest to help you start your fire. So we got some jute twine in there, we got some more char cloth, and we also have just pieces of bark, cedar, that I've picked up along the way, and all that again aids in tinder. Again, I try not to use the stuff that's in here unless I really have to. Most of the stuff I try to just find along the way. I mean, that is pretty much the whole purpose of why I like to go out, is to be minimal at certain times. So there you have it, guys. This is my bushcraft fire kit. If you guys have any questions or comments, just leave them below, and I'll try to leave links to most of the stuff here, like the Hudson Bay tobacco tin and the Opinel knife. And yeah, hopefully you guys can either show your kits or give advice on how I can make my kit better. Alright guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for tuning in. See you later.